Hey, hello everybody, you're watching Making It Look Great number 5. My name is Maltanen. And if you're standing up, then you should really sit down, because this one is going to knock you off your feet. This tutorial was supposed to be called Butterfly Dispersion, but our friend John Dickinson said to me that it's too techy and too geeky. So here we are watching a ButterflyMan tutorial. Yay! This is what we'll be creating today. I know what you're thinking. Okay, particular, layer emitter, and custom particle. That's it, right? Well, you're basically right, but there are a few tricks that we need to do to achieve this effect. So let me just start off by importing this footage. It's a dancing silhouette, as you can see, and this footage was kindly provided to us by uberstock.com. I recommend you check them out and also check their iStock video profile. They have lots and lots of interesting stock footage that you can buy for a pretty decent price, so make sure to check them out. Okay, so we want to take this dancing guy and basically turn him into a cloud of flying butterflies that will fly away out of the frame to the sunset or whatever. So your first guess was, of course, a good one. Particular on a new solid layer, like that. Turn our dancing guy off and just set the layer type, the emitter type to layer, but first we need to turn this layer into a 3D. Layer, choose the layer dancing guy. Okay, and that should be it, right? Well, you're basically right. Let me just turn this off now. It doesn't change anything, but you can basically see that the particles are getting emitted from our silhouette. And this is, of course, pretty much okay if we increase the amount of particles and maybe set the velocity to something pretty low. You'll see our dancing guy shape, right? But as you can see, the particles stay within his silhouette. And to change that, we should change the layer sampling to particle birth time. And that way the particles are emitted and then they stay in the comp as long as their lifespan is set to in the particle section here. That is all good. That's all okay. Let me just turn the dancing guy on. But what we want to do is we want to make the particles emit from our silhouette and then at the same time tearing off the part of the silhouette that they were born at. So how do we do it? Let me show you. Let's just get rid of those additional layers and just leave our dancing guy dancing in here. First of all, we need to change the name of our composition to footage, and I think we should scale him down a little bit and of course turn off the 3D switch because we don't need it anymore. So let's just scale him down just a little bit, something like that, and also move him here. Now he's dancing, very good. First we need to find a good place that we want to use as the dispersion. I think that it's right about here, right when he jumps into the air and swing his leg like that, and this is the place when we're going to turn him into a bunch of butterflies. So before we go any further, let's just go ahead and create our 3D butterfly. Create a new comp, 200 by 200, yeah, that's good. Zoom in, create a new solid, and I'm sure you've seen this a couple of times before because there are like 100 tutorials about creating a 3D butterfly as a custom particle. And I believe that it was even mentioned in the Making It Look Great 3 when Harry J. Frank was the host. But anyway, I'll just would like to go through this very briefly, very shortly. So let's just create a basic shape. Not very nice, I guess. Ugh, this is ugly, but I guess it'll do for now. I'm just going to show you a few tricks. Oh no, man, this is too ugly. Ugh. I think this butterfly is sick. Okay, never mind. Let's just duplicate this layer. And we're going to name this one Master Wing. Master Wing, and this is the Child Wing. Both should be 3D layers. And let's just rotate this one, orient this one in the separate direction. And this is pretty important that I'm using orientation instead of rotation. As you can see, this one is oriented like that, so it's pointing the opposite direction. And here are the cool things that I want to show you. I would like to have this mask exactly the same as the mask on the Master Wing. So basically I could just copy paste it. And this was actually how I was doing it until I discovered that in CS3 you can actually use an expression on a mask that will point to another mask. Like that. Now check this out. I'm going to change this wing. And the other one reacts, but this is gross. Okay. So just do it like that. Right, yeah, whatever. I'm not the best butterfly designer, as you can see, but I am a good plugin designer, and what I actually did is I invented this cool plugin for After Effects that is controlled with the voice commands, and it actually interprets your command and does its best to follow them. So I'm just going to snap my fingers and say the command. Watch this. Make this butterfly look cool. Ta-da! Ain't that cool? And this one even flies and does all cool stuff. Oh yeah, this is good. So let me just show you how this one is built. First we've got the controller layer, which is controlling the movement of the butterfly, and to be exact, the movement of the wings. As you can see, we've got the frequency and the amplitude. Sorry John, this is how fast they go, and this is how far they go. Okay, so we've got two sliders, and both of them control how fast the wings are flapping and how far they are going. If I would decrease this number, for example like that, then you would see that the wings are flapping pretty slowly, right? But I think the previous setting was pretty okay. And the same thing with the angle, with how far they go slider. As you can see also, the butterfly is rotating randomly, and this is because the controller layer is wiggling its orientation, as you can see in here. It's a pretty simple expression that just takes this value, wiggle amount, and then 2 times per second it's changing the orientation. You'll also notice that I have 2 keyframes here and 2 keyframes here, and this is because I want to ensure that this comp will loop. So it goes about 150 frames, and then the wiggling stops, and therefore the last frame and the first frame are almost identical. Only the wing position changes, and that's okay for us. Also, you'll notice that the camera is parented to this null object, and this is because I wanted to be able to set the direction in which the butterfly goes, basically. Because as you saw in the rendered file, the butterflies will go from the left to the right, and that's why it is set like that. If I would take the controller layer and just rotate it, you'll see that I can set the butterfly to go in any direction that I like. And also, this is why the keyframes at the wiggle amount are set about to 90 degrees, and that ensures that the butterfly will never turn the other way. So, I guess that's it for the butterfly. Oh yeah, one more thing. The body of the butterfly is made of a simple mask. Let me just find the layer. Yes, it's a straight line, and then I applied 3D stroke to it, and that ensures that the body is always visible. As you know, 3D layers in After Effects are flat and they don't have any depth, and that would make our butterfly disappear from time to time, you know, on occasional frames. And using 3D stroke ensures that it doesn't. We always see something, some part of the butterfly. So that's a pretty cool tip. Okay, let's go back to the project file. We've got the footage. We've got our dancing guy who's dancing. So here we're going to disperse him into the butterflies, then just go a few frames further, and maybe let's just trim it like that. This should be our final length of our composition. Let's just do a little bit of organizing. Let's call this comp butterfly, and let's drag our footage and name this comp as disperse. Okay, so as you saw at the beginning, when we apply particular with the layer emitter, the particles are being emitted from the layer based on the alpha channel, but they stay within the layer, or even if they don't tear off the parts of the original layer. So first we're going to do that. We're going to make the layer disappear as the particles would be tearing it apart. So let's just go to the right spot in here. Where was it? Somewhere in here. Okay, I guess this is good. And we could of course mask it out somehow, but I actually found a better way to do it. Let's use CC burn film. Okay, this looks okay. Let's just create a keyframe, go forward, and go like this. Okay, it doesn't look very good, so let's just go ahead and make a keyframe somewhere in here. Let's just move this here, maybe that'll look better. No, not very good. Okay, let's just leave it like that for now. I think that should do. So as you saw, when we apply particular, the particles are being emitted based on the alpha channel in this case, right? So we need to create an additional layer, additional composition that will emit the particles. So let's just go ahead and create another comp from our footage, and let's call this one Exploder. And we should apply CC burn to this comp as well. And oh yeah, once again we need to match it up with the same keyframes and everything. So to do that, we're going to use an expression. And just move this comp here, like that. And let's twirl down CC burn, and here as well. And let's just alt click and go like this. Alt click and go like this. And alt click and go like this. Okay, that should be fine. And now, however we set this comp is going to react on this comp as well. Let me just show you. Oh, sorry, let's just go to the Exploder and see if this works. Okay, very good. Very simple expressions, just pick whipping between different comps, right? Okay, but there's also one thing we need to do. We need to invert this alpha channel, because where this guy is gone, we want the particles to be emitting from this part, right? So we need to invert this alpha channel. So let's just do that. Let's go to the effects panel and apply invert, and we want to invert the alpha channel. Okay, that's good, but here's the problem, right? We've got all the blacks around it. And if you've been watching the previous tutorial, I'm sure you already know what we have to do. We have to apply CC composite. Sorry, okay. And change the mode to stencil alpha. You don't see it on the screen, but it's there. Okay. That looks pretty good, right? Right. Okay. But then again, we've got some problems here as well. As you can see, there's a slight edge to the alpha channel. Let me just zoom in and show this to you. See, we've got this outline, which is something that we don't want, so we can also apply alpha levels and maybe just play a little bit with this like that. Input black, clipping basically. Okay, and we also want to make this a little bit sharper, something like that. Okay, and also we want the silhouette be gone after the burn reaches 100. But keeping in mind that we're still going to manipulate the CC burn film effect in the disperse comp, we need to create another expression. And this is also based on the fact that even though we don't see anything in here, the layer is still visible and the particular will still emit invisible particles, basically the particles with alpha set to 0. And this will slow down the rendering and basically will be pretty memory and CPU intense. So how can we fix that? Well, there is a little trick to this. We just need to set the opacity to 0. And this may seem pretty strange, but it does work. So what we'll try to do now is we're going to create an expression for the opacity that will take a look where the keyframes of the CC burn film are set in the disperse comp, and if the current time indicator is before the first keyframe, it's going to set the opacity to 0, and when it's after the second keyframe, it's also going to set the opacity to 0. This may sound a little bit complicated, but it's actually pretty simple. So let's just go ahead and do that. I'm going to take this comp and put it in here, make some room, and alt-click on the opacity and point to our CC burn film burn parameter. Okay, I guess that that we can just go to the exploder layer right now, and this should be our variable CC burn keyframes. Let's just call it like that. And now we need to check whether or not the current time indicator is within those two keyframes. And if it is, we're going to set the opacity to 100. If not, we're going to set the opacity to 0. Pretty simple. So I'll just say if time, so current time, is less than CBK key, first key, and the time of the first key, or current time is greater than CC burn frame keys, key, second key, time of the second key, then set the opacity to 0. In every other case, set it to 100. So once again, if the current time indicator is less than the time of the first keyframe, or if the current time indicator is greater than the time of the second keyframe, then set the opacity to 0, and in every other case, set it to 100. So now let me remind you why we did it. Let me just put the exploder comp in here as well. And right now, the upper part should be disappearing and the other one should be getting visible. See? This is exactly what happens. This is our exploder and this is our footage. So right now, we're going to emit particles from our exploder. So in other words, from the parts that just disappeared in our footage. Right? Okay, pretty clever. And once again, the reason we did this is that we'll probably need to find the right keyframes and the right settings to make this look right. So before we start emitting particles, let's just play a little bit more with this. Let's just see where it should end. I think this is about right. Yeah, we are even pretty close, so let's just put this keyframe here. Okay, And also, let's just turn off the exploder for now. And we need to move the center. Somewhere in here. Maybe like that. No, doesn't change much. Probably need to play with the random seed. How's this? No, it still starts a little bit too late. Okay, this looks pretty good. Let's just try increasing it by 1. Can we do that? Yeah. Okay, this is not bad, I guess. No. Okay. Okay, this looks good. So let's just see how the exploder looks with this. Haha, see what happens? Very cool. Very cool. And then it disappears because there's this keyframe here. And after that keyframe, we're setting the opacity in the exploder comp to 0. Okay, pretty cool. So now let's just turn off the exploder and go ahead and make our solid with particles. Make comp size particular. Let's turn this off for now. And let's go ahead and set up the particular. So to use the layer as the particle emitter, we need to set the layer as a 3D layer. So emitter type layer, and the layer to be exploder. Also, as you remember from the beginning, we need to change the layer sampling to particle birth time. And I guess we can set the layer RGB usage to none at this point. And we should be seeing white particles. Okay, do we see them? Yeah, we do. But I think we need to increase the amount of particles. Let's make it 100,000. How does it look? Okay, pretty good. Let's just do a quick RAM preview for this. Okay, good. See how nice? So now the only thing left to do is to set up the particles correctly. So let's just set the velocity to 200 and velocity random to 100 and random velocity from motion to 100 as well. Also, we should have the size Z. Okay, let's just make it 100 as well. That will make it look like it's like it has more depth to it. And of course the particles to black. Okay, not bad. But I think we can play a bit in the exploder comp with the alpha levels, I think. Sorry, we should play with those. Okay, let's see how that looks. Let's go back to the footage comp. Oh, sorry, to the disperse comp. Yeah, of course. And let's just go back a few frames and see how that looks. Okay, looks fine, I guess. Let's just go down and set all the other parameters. Particle life, let's set it to 5 for now. Size, something about 10 maybe, so we can see the particles better. And right now we'll be working with the sphere particles, and then we're going to replace them with our butterfly particle. Okay, of course we need to make them go in this direction. So let's just go down to the physics, air, and wind X, let's say to 150. How does this look? Okay, generally they're going in that direction, but not just quite. Turbulent field, effect position 100. This doesn't change the direction they're going, but just in case, you know, to have some diversity to the motion. Scale 30, and that should do fine. There's also one thing that I think that if we're going to change, it's going to do some good to this animation. And I think that parameter is physics time factor. And this is a parameter that actually slows down or speeds up the motion of the particles. This is a very common question on many forums. How do I slow down particles? Well, this is how you do it. So let's just go ahead and find the right frame somewhere about here. Let's set it to, yeah, let's leave it at 1, but let's set a keyframe here. Let's just move forward just a little bit, and somewhere around here we'd like the particles to speed up like 3 times. Okay, and one more thing, I think we should try to set the direction. Let's make the particles directional and set the Y rotation to what, like 100 degrees? Oh yeah, yes. This is it, ladies and gentlemen. Let's see how it looks. In that way, we are forcing the particles to go in a specific direction. And of course, the wind is pushing them as well. And we were using the physics time factor to have the particles emit where our silhouette is and then slowly speed up. Because if there would be flying away instantly, then it would look kind of fake, right? Okay, this is looking pretty good. I'm pretty happy with this. So let's just go ahead and bring our butterfly to the comp. Turn it off and go back to our gray solid. Maybe let's rename it to particles. And let's set the particle to be custom and butterfly, and time sampling we can choose random loop. Since our particle is looping on its own, like I showed you at the beginning, we can start at the random frame and then just loop it. Okay, that should do it. Let's just go ahead and try. Okay, we definitely see that the particles are too small, so let's just go ahead and make it twice as big. And also we need to set it to custom fill and set the color to black. Exactly. Okay, this is pretty nice. It's very nice actually. And note how the butterflies are always pointing in this direction. Of course with some variety, but basically they're pointing in the right direction. You never see a frame when one of the butterflies is turned the other way and flying on the reverse gear. You know what I'm saying? So this is why we set up the null object in the butterfly like I told you at the beginning. So okay, I think that's good. Yeah, this is pretty awesome. Pretty awesome. I like it. I like it very much. Okay. I think that the only thing left to do is to set the size random to about 50. This will make our particles grow a little bit bigger and a little bit smaller. Let's just test it out one more time. Okay, sweet. Okay, so this looks pretty good on its own. I think it's a good time to save the project. But we're going to make it look even better. Imagine that. But first, since this is pretty render intense, even though we set up all the expressions at the exploder layer, not to emit particles, between the keyframes. But anyway, I think that we are safe right now to create a proxy of this. So let's just go ahead and create a proxy file. Movie, that's right. Let's set it up to be a QuickTime file saved as PNG, that's right. RGB plus alpha, everything's fine. Okay, and I think that we can even trim the comp somewhere in here. That's good. And let's just render it out. Okay, so the proxy is done. Oh, but I made a mistake. I used the draft settings, which is not what I wanted. So let me just go ahead. Here's a cool tip for you. Let me just go ahead and Ctrl-Shift-D for duplicating and setting the same file name as an output. Because I'm sure I want to override this file, so I don't want to bother with setting the same file name and confirming that yes, I want to override it. I'm just Ctrl-Shift duplicating it, and that way After Effects is not going to ask me again if I'm going to override the file. And I'm going to change the settings from draft to best quality. And the reason for that is I want to use this proxy when I'll be rendering the final output, so I want it to be the quality and the resolution of the original comp. Okay, quality best, resolution full, all other settings are correct, and let's just confirm and hit render. I tried to keep this project as simple as possible, but unfortunately there are some tricks that may be hard to understand at the beginning, and that's the reason why I came up with this small graph that will show you what's going on in our comp. This is the final composition that we're going to be handling, and as you can see we are here, and we've got all those comps going into this comp, and it's pretty simple. Let me just show you the whole graph here. So yeah, nothing too fancy, pretty simple, and it's going to be clear when we finish. Okay, so the proxy render is done. So let's just see how it looks. Very cool. As you can see, now it works blazing fast because instead of rendering the whole thing on each frame, we're just referencing a rendered file, which is exactly what proxy is. So let's just do some final touch-ups on this and drag this disperse comp into a make new comp button. Let's call this final. And let's just try a few different things that we can do with this. First of all, of course, we need to create a background. So new, solid, that's fine. And we're going to use the same background technique that we used in the previous tutorial, and I actually created a preset for that, which is also included on this DVD. Quick background, like that. And we've got a master color. We can set it to maybe something more gray, so we want to keep the monotone kind of look to this. Just a little bit blue tint, that should be fine. Let's put it below, and actually maybe we can make it colorful. Why not? Something like that. And let's colorize our dancing guy. Let's just use some color on him. And I actually prepared a file that we're going to use. Let me just import it here. And as you can see, it's nothing too fancy. It's just a file with a bunch of colors. I made this in Photoshop, basically putting some pictures together, playing with the saturation, brushes, some filters. Basically, it's a big cloud of colorful noise. We could, of course, generate it using fractal noise, but I figured, let's just do it in Photoshop. So we have this, and we are going to use this to colorize our dancing guy. And we're going to do it using my first product ever, which is called Light Wrap. So let's just drag it to our disperse layer, which is our dancing guy, of course. And by the way, this product is 9.95 euros, but you're getting it for free on this DVD, of course. So here's a short instruction on how to use it. You have to select the layer that you want to take the colors from, like that. And this is the only part that you can change. Anything that says FX is not to be touched, because otherwise you're going to mess up the controls that actually control the whole effect, right? So don't change anything except those three parameters and always set them to the same layer. So as you can see, we've got some nice color grading in here. Let's just see how it looks. And some other settings. We need to go to the light and set it to environmental light, like that. And maybe increase the saturation a bit. And also the lightness. And here are some cool tips. You can actually play a little bit with those. Don't change the settings, but you can try turning a given effects on and off. For example, we don't need color matching in here because we have only a black silhouette, so color matching doesn't change much. But we can turn off the match color, edge blur, keep alpha, and I think that the blending should be turned off as well. And that way we achieve a transparent silhouette with nice colors at the edges. Pretty fun, huh? We can increase the warp width and maybe decrease the blur, or no, we should actually increase it. And lower the lightness just a little bit, so we have a lot of colors. Okay, this looks pretty fine. Pretty interesting. Very nice. Maybe let's just apply a little bit of glow. Glow radius. Okay, this is pretty fine on its own, but we can do some other things. Just get rid of all those effects and change the background to something dark gray, maybe something like that. Let's play a little bit with some lights. Okay, so let's see what else we can do with this. We can try creating a new light, spotlight, that's okay. And we need some 3D layer as well, which is going to be our floor. So let's just create one and name it floor. Like that. Move it below our disperse layer. Turn it into 3D. And rotate it. And move it down. Like so. Just widen it up. And we need to position the light correctly, because it kind of shines in the wrong direction. I want it to shine from behind. So to do that, we're just going to go to the position and the point of interest, and we're going to set the position exactly the opposite. So 350. That's actually good. Okay, and we want to point this light at our dancing guy. We can also move it a little bit lower and maybe move it back a little bit. 400. That should be fine. And this to 0. Okay, good. But now I want to make the light a little bit more visible. So to do that, I'm going to create a new solid and I'm going to apply trap code lux, which basically renders a volumetric lights based on our comp lights. Oops, sorry, wrong layer. Just to make sure, this one. Okay, great. We can increase the reach so it shines a little bit further, like that. I think we can also increase the intensity just a little bit and also scale the floor like that. And it does look pretty good, but something's missing. We need to cast a shadow from our dancing guy, and actually we need to block the volumetric rays emitted from our dancing guy. And we're going to use trap code shine to do that. So let's just apply it to our disperse layer and suddenly dancing guy is gone. But we don't need to worry about it. First we need to set the source point to the position of our light, and we can do it like that, or we can also do it with an expression. Let me just switch this to normal so we can see the dispersion layer. And let's just go ahead and create a simple expression. First, we're going to point to the source layer, which is of our interest, and in that case, it's our light layer. So just go ahead and go like this. And the problem we're going to have is that the position of this layer is 3-dimensional and the position of the shine source point is 2-dimensional. So we need to convert 3-dimensional value to a 2-dimensional value. And we can do it with a simple expression using toComp command in expressions. And that works pretty well. I use the point 3 zeros in here because the light layer doesn't have the anchor point, and using toComp you usually point to the anchor point of the layer that you're referencing. So instead of pointing to the anchor point, which is missing in the light, I pointed to a point 0, 0, 0, and this just happens to work. So that's pretty good, but that's not all. We want to emit those dark rays from our character. So how we can do that? First, let's try switching to the alpha mode, and okay, and setting this to one color and setting the color to black. Pretty good, but I want to make it a little bit darker than that, so let's just try boosting the lights like that. Okay, that is pretty good, in fact. So now let's just see how it works. Okay, that works pretty good, but unfortunately our light stays in place, and I would like the light to follow our disperse layer. And how we can do that? Well, of course, we need to animate it by hand. Or do we? I wouldn't be mentioning this if I wouldn't have a solution for it. There's a plugin that I'm working on with my friend from avidionmedia.com, and you can get this plugin on my site www.maltana.com, but please remember it's still a pre-release with no official support and you're installing it on your own risk. And for that reason it is not bundled with this DVD, but still you can get it for free from my website, and make sure to watch the tutorial. And the plugin is called Motion Grabber. Let's just apply it to our dispersion layer. We can apply it before shine and maybe even turn the shine off for this matter. It shouldn't matter, but just to be safe. And that's pretty much all you have to do. Just apply it to the layer, make sure you've got the right layer selected as the layer to read, and you just have to click grab. After that, just wait a few seconds, let the motion grabber process the data, and as a result it will give you keyframes of the center point of your alpha channel. How cool is that? Okay, the keyframes are generated, as you can see, and we can even view them here. Quite a lot of keyframes, but the only one that interests us is output position. So let's just go ahead and take that output position and use it as a point of interest. So Alt click. Oh, we've lost the parameters in here. Okay, so let's just go back to the dispersion layer, log this palette, and just point it here, output position. And as you can see, After Effects generated the whole expression for us, even taking care of the upscaling of the dimensions of, or whatever you want to call it. Basically, we're trying to apply two-dimensional value to a three-dimensional value, so it took care of that. But I think that I want the Z position, which is the third parameter, to be 0 at all times. So that should do just fine. And let's just go ahead and see how it looks. Haha, ain't that cool? And now the only thing left to do is to turn the shine on and maybe even decrease the boost lights just a bit. And voila! Haha, pretty cool, pretty amazing. The only thing they have to do is, of course, to scale up the floor, I think, because the guy is dancing in air, which is not what we want, of course. Now let's do it like that. And we can also move the light up a little bit. And since we've got the shine connected to the position of the light, that should be no problem at all. Okay, very good. Maybe we can even move the light a little bit further away. Okay, that's cool. That's very cool. So I guess that's it for this tutorial. I hope you've enjoyed it. It was a little bit tricky, but I'm sure you've got a lot out of it. See you in the next one. Happy After Effecting.